Hi, this is Andrea for the Learning Bear Podcast, your resource for wild professional development. Today I'm doing a book review, which I've been doing a lot of lately. I've been catching up on books that are in my science-based book club. I kind of fell behind, kind of fell out of love with books for a short period because I read some downers. But this one is not a downer, and it's also kind of an atypical review for me. This book is a nature book in a way, but it is fictional. And as much as I would love it to be true, it is fictional. So, however, it is surprising how much this is connected to reality, and I really appreciated that. The book that I read was called Wishtree by Katherine Applegate. Wishtree is an easy read with some nice sketches here and there and short chapters, which is great. All of those things make a book enjoyable, in my opinion. Other than the personification of plants and animals, this book has a lot of nature facts peppered throughout, which, I don't know, I guess I'm really surprised by that. I don't know. I don't know why I'm surprised, but I am. Let's start with the two main characters. First, there's Red, which is a tree, and then there's Bongo, a crow. There are tree references that I really enjoy as a lover and longtime learner of trees. The author mentions them being strong, silent, unbiased, alive, and a hub for the critter communities. All of these things are true and are also facts that most people would probably include when they're writing a story about a tree, but also things that are kind of commonsensical, I think. The author also includes references to roots stretching farther for more resources, including into plumbing, as it was in the story. Talks about carvings hurting trees, which they do. We'll talk more about that. And also providing more oxygen to, the world. And they're aesthetically pleasing, which is also true. Everybody loves a big, beautiful tree. And also something, I just sort of learned recently too, and I appreciate it was in this book, is that while they don't sleep, trees do rest at night, as do most plants that are not, diurnal, if you will. But they don't sleep, but they rest. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're not as committed to photosynthesis at night because, the moon is much dimmer than the sun. And I don't know, I just learned that recently. I forget which book I read that in, but I thought that was interesting that was included in there. And so kudos. I think that these latter references, many will not notice or know unless they're tree fanatics or readers of tree facts or scientists, whatever. The general reader is probably not going to pay any attention to that. But as someone that loves trees and reads a lot about trees, I really appreciated the input of those deeper facts in such a lighthearted story. So then we have the crow named Bongo, and there aren't as many references to crows unless I missed them, which is okay. The tree is definitely the main character, but Bongo is a pretty significant supporting character in the story. Applegate mentions that they eat everything, which crows are omnivorous, so that checks out. There are also jibes from supporting characters that crows are very chatty, and crows do have different languages they speak depending on the company they're in. If they're with their family, they have a different sort of sound than if they're like just being annoying and have that caw caw that we all know. There's a really great PBS documentary about crows if you're interested in more information about it. Check it out at your library or whatever. It's very, very good. I know that sounds really weird. I've watched it. It's excellent. I really enjoyed it, and I would totally watch it again. Applegate mentions, too, that crows are observant, and from the documentary that I'm referencing, they share a study where scientists would wear these weird masks, like rubber masks, and somehow they would make the crows feel threatened. I can't remember if it was them taking eggs or, pretending to mess with their tree or their nest. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen the documentary. But the crows remember those rubber masks, the faces, and they call to their crow families when these quote-unquote bad humans are nearby. But when the scientists come in to their range without the masks on, the crows don't make a fuss because they're not being threatening. They're just kind of like walking through. The last thing that I noted from the book in regards to crows was them using tools. Crows are very smart. I know they're typically seen as a nuisance for any number of reasons, but they're very good at manipulating things for their benefit. In the story, Bongo unbends a paperclip. It ends up not helping him, and somebody else has to help him, or her, sorry. But Bongo does do that, and that's real to life. Then there's some other references that she makes that are nature-based that I'm just going to quickly breeze over, but I felt like they were important enough to mention. She mentions that humans are cruel, which, checks out. She discusses predator-prey relationships and kind of the circle of life. There are all kinds of animals living in the hollows of trees, which checks out. She mentions the word crepuscular, which means, which are animals that are active between night and day, dusk and dawn, kind of, it's like deer, bats, cats, that sort of thing. Adaptations of animals like possums playing dead are discussed. Bongo talks about animal group names, like a group of crows is called a murder, and a group of hummingbirds is a charm, and so forth. I love learning about group names of animals. I think they're fascinating. I did already know that a group of crows is called a murder. I'm sure that's something related to like Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and his bird or something. I don't know. I'm sure that there's some sort of historical reason that it's called a murder. And then she also references squirrel's nest being called a dray, and I saw it spelled a couple different ways, so I'm not really sure how to spell it for you. It's a D-R-A-Y or D-R-E-Y. I actually started reading a book after that spelled it a different way, so I don't know which one's right. All of these are big nature mentions, especially crepuscular. I mean, kudos to that. But I don't know if she's a scientist. I should look more into her background, but I feel like it'll ruin the story for me. But she clearly has an understanding of nature, and I really appreciate that as an environmental educator. So my final thoughts about the book involve some questions, and the first couple are questions that the author actually poses in the book, and the characters kind of work through these things, but I started to think about them for myself. So the first question is, why are trees and animals friends? And what makes a friend a friend? These thoughts to me are easy to understand, but extremely difficult to define. Trees and animals coexist in a mutually beneficial way in a lot of times, but not always. Woodpeckers start the development of those hollows by poking holes in trees, but they're eating the bugs that can harm the trees. So, it's kind of beneficial in a way. Trees probably end up with a shorter stick on that one. But the animals, they move into those hollows, and I'm not sure if animals living in those hollows is beneficial. I could maybe guess that animals taking up residence in there, they're kind of filling in that negative space, and so maybe the tree doesn't lose as much body heat. Maybe it helps prevent rotting and bugs. I don't know. The second question, though, what makes a friend a friend? Is it always having something in common, like the author suggests? Is it a common goal? I kind of reflected on some of my friendships as I was reading this book, and they mostly started because we shared the same job. And through the struggle of the workplace, we all unite on that. We became buddies, and that extended beyond the workplace. And now, I've had the same friends for a really long time. Of course, it's not always that way for some people. Some people you never ever want to see again that you work with. Totally understand that. But I don't know what makes a friend a friend? Why are you friends? Why are trees and animals friends? Are they friends? Just some kind of deeper thought-provoking stuff going on in this kind of lighthearted story that I didn't really expect, but I appreciated. The last thing I want to mention is not a question that the author poses, but one she sort of raises for me personally about Wishtrees. Never heard of them before. I'm very curious about their cultural influence in Ireland. I need to do more research. I did find some pictures of Wishtrees, obviously, so they are a thing. But I want to kind of read more about them and learn about the mythology or legend or whatever, because that stuff sort of interests me. But I wanted to get this video out before I did that. So I can't really grade this in the usual way, so I've been a little bit creative on what my review score will be. Overall, I give it top marks. And I give it top marks because it's easy, it's lighthearted. Kids could read this, old people, everybody can read this book. It has some difficult situations that adds some tension, and the book navigates those very easily, which I appreciate. It's not a knot that can't be unraveled. it's not overly difficult, and I appreciate that. I really like the cultural references, like the Wishtree. I really enjoy the inputs of nature sprinkled in. Those are gems for someone like me. And I think it's highly creative and imaginative, and it definitely inspires me to do some research and think about inputting a Wishtree into my work. It also, I just read The Nature Fix, and now I'm reading The Inner Life of Animals, and all three of these books kind of go together as far as the nature and connecting animals and plants and humans, and just, I don't know, it's just really interesting, and I thought it was a really good book. So that is why I give it top marks. So in the end, check out Wishtree by Katherine Applegate. It's a nice, easy read, short. You should definitely check it out. If you would like to read more about trees and their impact with the world around them, I highly recommend The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Volovin. Also check out my review of that book. It's an amazing book. It's also an easy read. He explains difficult concepts very well. His other two books that I've read are also excellent, so definitely check him out. And then again, the Crow documentary from PBS is a must-see, so I highly recommend that as well. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.